Okay, so you ready?
Let's get the show on.
Alright, so the first set of questions, and you can answer them any way you like, is were there environments that you personally experienced that prompted your work as an advocate, activist in the movement?
No, I enjoyed my treatment very much. You can guess that that's not true. Yes, I mean, there were a number of them. I was admitted 7 discrete times to 4 different hospitals, although, you know, a few of those were clustered, so it counts as maybe 3 distinct events. But, or, you know, since the family and community team people made such a big deal out of the last one, we'll just say 4 events. But different hospitals, different places, people from the public system being jerks. I mean, when it comes to the system, basically every environment I experienced was the same way the whole time I was formally in the system. I don't... Some sort of I don't know how much I should be answering, how much you would be narrowing.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking for either the descriptions of physical environments, the actual physical environments, and then also what did it feel like? What was the social, psychological, cultural context in which things were happening?
The first place I was at was Children's Hospital, which wasn't that bad. I mean, there's sort of the main hall, and off to one side there were, you know, like a classroom and a conference room and something, and then they had 4 of those little silly children's seclusion rooms. And then off to the other side was sort of the main area, and at Children's, on the crisis unit, actually, the beds folded out of the walls at night. They had curtains instead of real rooms. You know, I wasn't there that long as an inpatient, but it was a pretty nasty place. But what I remembered the most were the little carpet-covered rooms, floor and wall and ceiling, and they actually had a little bit of a bench that a kid could sit on, architecturally built into them. So it was just this little dinky room, probably, you know, not as far forward as from me to the camera, and not as far to the side as from me to you, or I suppose for the camera I should give rough dimensions, maybe 4 or 5 feet in a square, including the bit that was a bench. It was pretty much just a little dinky room for children who were being annoying in. And, you know, other than that, it was your standard hospital. It was sterile, fluorescent lights, painted walls, and the way they paint in hospitals, it's specific. It's, you know, at Bethesda, which was sort of a whole campus, they had the children's unit, and then they had other stuff that was, they had like the acute children's unit, and then they had other like more long-term stuff. I think they had an adult unit and all of that. But, you know, it actually didn't feel as much like a hospital as Children's did, probably because it was, you know, a specific nut farm campus. It felt very much like a nut farm, but not so much like a hospital, if you know what I mean. You know, Centennial Peaks...
What's the difference?
I mean, a hospital has that nice sterile feel, but it may not necessarily be a bad thing. It could just as readily be, you know, a clean, well-lighted room in which to be safe from the horrible chaos of the world. And, you know, if you've got some physical illness, I could see that kind of environment maybe being less of an oppressive thing than if it's specifically being used on your brain. Because then it's not, you know, sterile because we're afraid you're going to get a staph infection. It's sterile because we felt like it. And it's, I mean, in that way it's a little different. Things are not always, you know, spick and span and covered in bleach and shiny, but they're still, you know, it's still got the sense of being an institutional sort of place. It's got the dull feel. It's just not as abrasive about it. I don't know if that's really at all helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And then Centennial Peaks was also a dedicated nut farm. You know, they had a section which was for outpatient because, of course, they had psychiatrists on staff. And then they had this huge inpatient section, or this huge lock section. And in the lock section, there was a thing from the Youthful Offender Program for DOC. There was the RTC unit over in one of the pods. Those were next to each
Residential
other.
treatment center?
Yes. And then in the other pod, there was the adolescent acute and the adult unit. Now, of course, the YOC and the RTC did not share anything. They were well secured from each other. But the adult and the adolescent acute units shared staff and all of that. So, you know, there was sort of a connection there. They actually designed the place rather well. Do you have the...
I do have the pad, and, geez, the markers are in that bag right there.
I mean, the adolescent acute unit was, let's see, so we have this rough section here, and this would be and then this would be nursing, and then over here they have like rooms. And there's this long-ass hallway. So the rough design of the unit is they had a sort of public area with a fridge and, you know, a couch and a TV, and then they had rooms behind that, and they had rooms on the opposite side, and then they had the nursing station, and they had some sort of like conference room, and then they had like a seclusion room. I'm not sure exactly where this room was, but it was on this hallway. And then they had a bunch of patient rooms. The interesting thing about Centennial Peaks that I really noticed was that they were pretty wise with their architecture for the following reason. Here was a privacy fence that was huge and sheer and unscalable, and this was a courtyard. And they had a similar courtyard outside the RTC that was similarly well secured. And then this went into the interior, which was another locking section of the hospital that we were, you know, school was in there, for instance. They actually had kids who came for day treatment who got locked in during the day, they said for truancy problems or whatever, but I think it was mostly just because they could. And then, you know, the barriers this direction, of course, was that you had to go through the whole rest of the hospital and any door beyond here was locked. The barrier here, of course, was the fence and the fact that they never actually let you out there, but it was at least circumventable. This door had the weakness in that its only other security mechanism was an alarm. But each one of them had some clear double protection on it in addition to the key switch. And their security system was pretty silly. They didn't have like prox cards or swipe cards, so it was just metallic keys hitting relays. But you know, they had very clearly and well designed multiple roads out of there, all blocked multiply, and there's no way they didn't do that on purpose.
Just for a reference point, how long ago were you there?
That would have been 1998 December, 1999 January. So
roughly 12 years ago?
Yeah.
So, and without much thought, you were able to just replicate the space of how it was set up and...
Yeah, I'm not sure about the positioning of the conference room, and the adult unit is sort of at a right angle. They were pods at right angles, so the nursing thing is sort of curved wrong, but yeah, pretty much this was the layout of the place. And then they had outpatient offices up there. I mean, it was a shitty place, of course, you remember, and also am I allowed to say shitty?
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
Dr. E. Fullertory is an asshole.
That's exactly the kind of information we need. So let me tell you a little bit about life space mapping. Life space mapping takes a physical map of a place and then overlays it with memories and marking spots of where things happened.
I might need to draw that section.
Okay.
So I guess we'll use this as the prime map of the hospital area, and then there was a central sort of area in which there was some sort of office and there were multiple classrooms and there was a bit of a hallway down here. I'm not sure about the count of these rooms. And then outside there was what had the feel of a larger square, but I don't know if it's complete in all directions. And of course there was the set of doors here to adolescent and adult, and then the set of doors to RTC and YOC.
YOC?
Youthful Offender System.
Okay.
Or YOS, I think it was. But it was the Department of Corrections thing, because they had kids in residential who couldn't be at Clear Wallace because they needed to be in full-time locked residential, as opposed to residential, but they, sometimes let you outside. I mean, they had their courtyard area too. Because the hospital then, somewhere onto this hallway, this big-ass hallway, had a door that locked from, another big courtyard, or not courtyard, but interior area that was sort of a lobby, and then it was off this direction-ish that the outpatient stuff took place. So somehow the courtyard that I was drawing is in here, and the adolescent unit strims off over this way, the adult unit goes that way, and I think there was some sort of ropes course in this corner, but I'm not sure how they use the corners. I didn't really get to walk around the building and see how everything connected. I went through, a certain set of doors and didn't see most of this, so...
so this was a locked facility?
Yeah. Every time this symbol appears, I'm describing specifically a door which locks. Because the other doors
don't have a key to open.
Objectives. That I don't have a key to open. And then the red marks are for secondary architectural barriers of some kind. So, they had, I think it was YOS and RTC, but I could have these two backwards. I was only on the RTC for like a day, because they couldn't find the money and they were really just trying to threaten me. And this was...
what does that say?
Adolescent acute CN lay.
Okay.
And this was courtyard. So this was a locking door into the prime locked area, and then they had different locking pods off of it. So if I had wanted to sort of go that way, it would have been, a double challenge plus all of this to deal with. So this was definitely not the way out. This was the way out, or, the best way out was right here during the coat grade. But one of the most significant events which ever happened in my life actually began approximately there. So, definitely worth having the big-ass map. Yeah, what the hell. So I'm guessing your next question will be, would you mind describing that event?
This is a participatory process.
Well...